Krishna. Dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. I've been speaking all day, non-stop, and I've lost my voice a little bit. I almost canceled tonight, but I couldn't because it's too nectarian. So, right here from the live studios in Hythe, the Haven, we're a little late, but we're going to start right from the nectar of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Mahima Stotram from Sri Krishna Lila Stava, text 412 through 416, 5 beautiful verses by Srila Sanatana Goswami glorifying the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, O singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Prabho Kali Dvandudita Ditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who were supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Madmahadana Manistadaga Madbhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu, sadhu tadayin, atini chotatakara, hanamun chagadachin mam, premna rit kantayokspura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me, always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, chapter 86. It's hard to believe that we've gotten this far already. So it's gone so fast, the time, isn't it? I've heard as you get older, the time goes faster. They seems to, and I can testify. Day after tomorrow, I will be 75, and it's going faster and faster. So fast I can't keep up with it. Hare Krishna. Chapter 86. The kidnapping of Subadra and Lord Krishna's visiting Śrutadeva and Bahulāśva. After hearing of the incidents described in the last chapter, King Parikshit became more inquisitive to hear about Krishna and his pastimes. And thus he inquired from Śrutadeva Goswami how his grandmother, Subadra, was kidnapped by his grandfather, Arjuna, at the instigation of Lord Krishna. King Parikshit was very eager to learn how his grandfather kidnapped and married his grandmother. Thus Śrutadeva Goswami began to narrate the story as follows. Once upon a time, King Parikshit's grandfather, Arjuna, the great hero, was visiting several holy places of pilgrimage, and while thus traveling all over, he happened to come to Prabhas Kshetra. In Prabhas Kshetra, he heard the news that Lord Balarama was negotiating the marriage of Subadra, the daughter of Arjuna's maternal uncle, Vyāsadeva. Although her father, Vyāsadeva, and her brother, Krishna, were not in agreement with him, Balarama was in favor of marrying Subhadra to Duryodhana. Arjuna, however, desired to gain Subhadra's hand himself. As he thought of Subhadra and her beauty, Arjuna became more and more captivated with the idea of marrying her. And with the plan in mind, he dressed himself like a Vaishnava sannyasi, carrying a tridanda in his hand. The Mayavadi sannyasis take one danda, or one rod, whereas the Vaishnava sannyasis take 3 dandas, or 3 rods. The 3 rods, or tridanda, indicate that a Vaishnava sannyasi vows to render service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead with his body, mind, and words. The system of tridanda sannyas has been in existence for a long time, and the Vaishnava sannyasis are called tridandis, or sometimes tridandi swamis, or tridandi Goswamis. Sannyasis are generally meant to travel all over the country for preaching work, but during the 4 months of the rainy season in India, from July through October, they do not travel, but take shelter in one place and remain there without moving. This non-movement of the sannyasi is called Chaturmasya Vrat. When a sannyasi stays in one place for these 4 months, the local inhabitants of that place take advantage of his presence to become spiritually advanced. Arjuna, in the dress of a Tridandi sannyasi, remained in the city of Dwarka for the 4 months of the rainy season, devising a plan whereby he could get Subhadra as his wife. None of the inhabitants of Dwarka, including Lord Balarama, could recognize the sannyasi to be Arjuna. Therefore, all of them offered their respects and obeisances to the sannyasi without knowing the actual situation. One day, Balarama invited this particular sannyasi to lunch at his home. Balaramaji very respectfully offered him all kinds of palatable dishes, and the so-called sannyasi was eating sumptuously. While eating at the home of Balaramaji, Arjuna was simply looking at beautiful Subhadra, who was very enchanting to great heroes and kings. Out of love for her, Arjuna's eyes brightened, and he looked at her with glittering eyes. Arjuna decided that somehow or other he would achieve Subhadra as his wife, and his mind became agitated on account of this strong desire. Arjuna, the grandfather of Maharaj Parikshit, was himself extraordinarily beautiful, and his bodily structure was very attractive to Subhadra, who decided within her mind that she would only accept Arjuna as her husband. As a simple girl, she was smiling with great pleasure looking at Arjuna. Thus, Arjuna also became more and more attracted by her. In this way, Subhadra dedicated herself to Arjuna, and he resolved to marry her by any means. He then became absorbed 24 hours a day in thought of how he could get Subhadra as his wife. He was afflicted with the thought of getting Subhadra and had not a moment's peace of mind. Once upon a time, Subhadra, seated on a chariot, came out of the palace fort to see the gods in the temple. Arjuna took this opportunity, and with the permission of Vāsadeva and Devaki, he kidnapped her. After getting on Subhadra's chariot, he prepared himself for a fight. taking up his bow and holding off with his arrows the soldiers ordered to check him, Arjuna took Subhadra away. While Subhadra was thus being kidnapped by Arjuna, her relatives and family members began to cry. But still, he took her, just as a lion takes his prey and departs. When it was disclosed to Lord Balarama that the so-called sannyasi was Arjuna, who had planned such a device simply to take away Subhadra, and that he had actually taken her, he became very angry, just as the waves of the ocean became agitated on a full moon day. Lord Balarama became greatly disturbed. Lord Krishna was in favor of Arjuna. Therefore, along with other members of the family, he tried to pacify Balarama by falling at his feet and begging him to pardon Arjuna. Krishna convinced Lord Balarama that Subhadra was attached to Arjuna, and thus Balarama became pleased to know that she wanted Arjuna as her husband. The matter was settled, and to please the newly married couple, Lord Balarama arranged to send a dowry consisting of an abundance of riches, including elephants, chariots, horses, men-servants, and maidservants. Maharaj Parikshit was very eager to hear more about Krishna, and so after finishing the narration of Arjuna's kidnapping Subhadra, Śrutadeva Goswami began to narrate another story as follows. There was a householder Brahmana in the city of Mithila, the capital of the kingdom of Videha. This Brahmana, whose name was Śrutadeva, was a great devotee of Lord Krishna. Because he was fully Krishna conscious and always engaged in the service of the Lord, he was completely peaceful in mind and detached from all material attraction. He was very learned and had no desire other than to be fully situated in Krishna consciousness. Although in the order of householder life, he never took great pains to earn anything for his livelihood. He was satisfied with whatever he could achieve without much endeavor. And somehow or other, he lived in that way. Every day, he would get the necessities of life in just the quantity required, and not more. That was his destiny. The Brahmana had no desire to get more than what he needed, and thus he was peacefully executing the regulative principles of a Brahmana's life, as enjoined in the revealed scriptures. Fortunately, the king of Mithila was as good a devotee as the Brahmana. The name of this famous king was Bahulāśva. He was very well established in his reputation as a good king, and he was not at all ambitious to extend his kingdom for the sake of sense gratification. As such, both the Brahmana and king Bahulāśva remained pure devotees of the Lord in Mithila. Since Lord Krishna was very merciful toward these two devotees, King Bahulāśva and the Brahmana Śrutadeva, he one day asked his driver, Dwaraka, to take his chariot into the capital city of Mithila. Lord Krishna was accompanied by the great sages Narada, Vāmadeva, Atri, Vyāsadeva, Parashuram, Asita, Aruni, Shukadeva, Brihaspati, Kanva, Maitra, Chaivana, and others. Lord Krishna and the sages passed through many villages and towns, and everywhere the citizens would receive them with great respect and offer them articles of worship. To the citizens who came to see the Lord and all the assembled sages, it seemed as though the sun were present along with his various satellite planets. In that journey, Lord Krishna and the sages passed through the kingdoms of Anartha, Dhanva, Kudujangala, Kanka, Matsya, Panchala, Kunti, Madhu, Kekaya, Koshala, and Arna. And thus all the citizens of these places, both men and women, could see Lord Krishna face to face. In this way, they enjoyed celestial happiness with open hearts full of love and affection for the Lord. And when they saw the face of the Lord, it seemed to them that they were drinking nectar through their eyes. When they saw Krishna, all the ignorant misconceptions of their lives dissipated. When the Lord passed through the various countries and the people came to visit him, simply by glancing over them, the Lord would bestow all good fortune upon them and liberate them from all kinds of ignorance. In some places, the demigods would join with the human beings, and their glorification of the Lord would cleanse all directions of all inauspicious things. In this way, Lord Krishna gradually reached the kingdom of Videha. When the citizens received the news of the Lord's arrival, they all felt unlimited happiness and came to welcome him, taking gifts in their hands to offer. As soon as they saw Lord Krishna, their hearts immediately blossomed in transcendental bliss, just like lotus flowers upon the rising of the sun. Previously, they had simply heard the names of the great sages, but had never seen them. Now, by the mercy of Lord Krishna, they had the opportunity of seeing both the great sages and the Lord himself. King Bahulāśva and the Brahmana Śrutadeva, knowing well that the Lord had come there just to grace them with favor, immediately fell at the Lord's lotus feet and offered their respects. With folded hands, the king and the Brahmana each simultaneously invited Lord Krishna and all the sages to his home. In order to please both of them, Lord Krishna expanded himself into two and went to the houses of each one of them. Yet neither the king nor the Brahmana could understand that the Lord had gone to the house of the other. Both thought that the Lord had gone only to his house, that he and his companions were present in both houses, although both the Brahmana and the king thought he was present in one house only, is another opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This opulence is described in the revealed scriptures as Vaibhava Prakash. When Lord Krishna married 16,000 wives, he expanded himself into 16,000 forms, each of them as powerful as he himself. Similarly, in Vrindavan, when Brahma stole Krishna's calves and cowherd boys, Krishna expanded himself into many new calves and boys. Bahulāśva, the king of Videha, was very intelligent and was a perfect gentleman. He was astonished that so many great sages, along with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, were personally present in his home. He knew perfectly well that conditioned souls engaged in worldly affairs cannot be 100% pure, whereas the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his pure devotees are always transcendental to worldly contamination. Therefore, when he found that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and all the great sages were at his home, he was astonished, and he began to thank Lord Krishna for his causeless mercy. Feeling very much obliged and wanting to receive his guests to the best of his ability, he called for nice chairs and cushions, and Lord Krishna, along with all the sages, sat down very comfortably. At that time, King Bahulāśva's mind was very restless, not because of any problems, but because of great ecstasy of love and devotion. His heart was filled with love and affection for the Lord, and his associates and his eyes were filled with tears of ecstasy. He washed the feet of his divine guests and afterwards he and his family members sprinkled the water on their own heads. After this, he offered the guests nice flower garlands, sandalwood pulp, incense, new garments, ornaments, lamps, cows, and bulls. In a manner just befitting his royal position, he worshipped each one of them in this way. When all had been fed sumptuously and were sitting very comfortably, Bahulāśva came before Lord Krishna and caught his lotus feet. He placed them on his lap, and while massaging the feet with his hands, began to speak about the glories of the Lord in a sweet voice. My dear Lord, you are the supersoul of all living entities, and as the witness within the heart, you are cognizant of everyone's activities. Thus we are duty-bound to always think of your lotus feet, so that we can remain in a secure position and not deviate from your eternal service. As a result of our continuous remembrance of your lotus feet, you have kindly visited my place personally to favor me with your causeless mercy. We have heard, my dear Lord, that by your various statements you confirm your pure devotees to be more dear to you than Lord Balarama, or your constant servitor, the goddess of fortune. Your devotees are dearer to you than your first son, Lord Brahma. And I am sure that you have so kindly visited my place in order to prove your divine statement. I cannot imagine how people can be godless and demoniac, even after knowing of your causeless mercy and affection for your devotees who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness. How can people who know of these things forget your lotus feet? My dear Lord, it is known to us that you are so kind and liberal that when a person leaves everything just to engage in Krishna consciousness, you sometimes give yourself in exchange for that unalloyed service. You have appeared in the Yadu dynasty to fulfill your mission of reclaiming all conditioned souls rotting in the sinful activities of material existence. And this appearance is already famous all over the world. My dear Lord, you are the ocean of unlimited mercy, love, and affection. Your transcendental form is full of bliss, knowledge, and eternity. You can attract everyone's heart by your beautiful form as Shyamasundar, Krishna. Your knowledge is unlimited, and to teach all people how to execute devotional service, you have sent your incarnation, Narayana, who was engaged in severe austerities and penances at Badrinarayana. Kindly, therefore, accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. My dear Lord, I beg to request you and your companions, the great sages and brahmanas, to remain at my place, at least for a few days, so that this family of the famous King Nimi may be sanctified by the dust of your lotus feet. Lord Krishna could not refuse the request of his devotee, and thus he remained there for a few days with the sages to sanctify the city of Mithila and all its citizens. Meanwhile, the Brahmana Śrutadeva, simultaneously receiving Lord Krishna and his associates at home, was transcendently overwhelmed with joy. After offering his guests nice sitting places, the Brahmana began to dance, waving around his wrap. Śrutadeva, being not at all rich, offered only mattresses, wooden planks, straw carpets, and so on to his distinguished guests, Lord Krishna and the sages. But he welcomed them to the best of his ability. He spoke very highly of the Lord and the sages, and he and his wife washed the feet of each one of them. After this, he took the water and sprinkled it over all the members of his family. And although the Brahmana appeared very poor, he was at that time most fortunate. While Śrutadeva was welcoming Lord Krishna and his associates, he simply forgot himself in transcendental joy. After welcoming the Lord and his companions, according to his ability, he brought fruits, incense, scented water, scented clay, tulsi leaves, kusha straw, and lotus flowers. They were not costly items and could be secured very easily, but because they were offered with devotional love, Lord Krishna and his associates accepted them gladly. The Brahmana's wife cooked simple foods like rice and dal, and Lord Krishna and his Brahmana's wife and Lord Krishna and his followers were very much pleased to accept them because they were offered in devotional love. When Lord Krishna and his associates were fed in this way, the Brahmana Śrutadeva was thinking thus: I have fallen into the deep, dark well of householder life, and am the most unfortunate person. How has it become possible that Lord Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his associates, the great sages, whose very presence makes a place as sanctified as a pilgrimage site, have agreed to come to my place? While the Brahmana was thinking in this way, the guests finished their lunch and sat back very comfortably. At that time, the Brahmana Śrutadeva and his wife, children, and other relatives appeared there to render service to the distinguished guests. While touching the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, the Brahmana began to speak. My dear Lord, he said, you are the Supreme Person, Purushottama, transcendently situated beyond the manifested and unmanifested material creation. The activities of this material world and of the conditioned souls have nothing to do with your position. We can appreciate that not only today have you given me your audience, but you are associating with all the living entities as Paramatma since the beginning of creation. This statement of the Brahmana is very instructive. It is a fact that the Supreme Lord, the Personality of Godhead, in his Paramatma feature, enters the creation of this material world as Mahavishnu, Garbhodakashai Vishnu, and Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. And in a very friendly attitude, the Lord sits along with the conditioned soul in the body. But therefore, every living entity has the Lord with him from the very beginning, but due to his mistaken consciousness of life, the living entity cannot understand this. When his consciousness, however, is changed into Krishna consciousness, he can immediately understand how Krishna is trying to assist the conditioned souls to get out of the material entanglement. Śrutadeva continued, my dear Lord, you have entered this material world as if sleeping. A conditioned soul, while sleeping, creates false or temporary worlds in his mind. He becomes busy in many illusory activities, sometimes becoming a king, sometimes being murdered, or sometimes going to an unknown city. And all these are simply temporary affairs. Similarly, your Lordship, apparently also in a sleeping condition, enters this material world to create a temporary manifestation, not for your personal necessities, but for the conditioned soul who wants to imitate your Lordship as enjoyer. The conditioned soul's enjoyment in the material world is temporary and illusory, and yet the conditioned soul is by himself unable to create such a temporary situation for his illusory enjoyment. To fulfill his desires, although they are temporary and illusory, you enter this temporary manifestation to help him. Thus, from the beginning of the conditioned soul's entering into the material world, you are his constant companion. When, therefore, the conditioned soul comes in contact with a pure devotee and takes to devotional service, beginning with the process of hearing your transcendental pastimes, glorifying your transcendental activities, worshipping your eternal form in the temple, offering prayers to you, and engaging in discussion to understand your transcendental position, he gradually becomes freed from the contamination of material existence. And as his heart becomes cleansed of all material dust, you gradually become visible there. Although you are constantly with the conditioned soul, only when he becomes purified by devotional service do you become revealed to him. Others who are bewildered by fruitive activities, either by Vedic injunction or by customary dealings, and who do not take to devotional service, are captivated by the external happiness of the bodily concept of life. You are not revealed to such persons. Rather, you remain far, far away from them. But for one who engages in your devotional service and purifies his heart by constant chanting of your holy name, you are very easily understood as his eternal, constant companion. It is said that your lordship, sitting in the heart of a devotee, gives him direction by which he can very quickly come back home, back to you. This direct dictation by you reveals your existence within the heart of the devotee. Only a devotee can immediately appreciate your existence within his heart, whereas for a person who has only a bodily concept of life and is engaged in sense gratification, you always remain covered by the curtain of Yogamaya. Such a person cannot realize that you are very near, sitting within his heart. For a non-devotee, you are appreciated only as ultimate death. The difference is like the difference between a cat carrying its kittens in its mouth and carrying a rat in its mouth. In the mouth of the cat, the rat feels its death, whereas the kittens in the mouth of the cat feel motherly affection. Similarly, you are present to everyone, but the non-devotee feels you as ultimate cruel death, whereas for a devotee, you are the supreme instructor and philosopher. The atheist therefore understands the presence of God as death, but the devotee understands the presence of God always within his heart, takes direction from you, and lives transcendentally, unaffected by the contamination of the material world. You are the supreme controller and superintendent of the material nature's activities. The atheistic class of men simply observe the activities of material nature, but cannot find you as the original background. A devotee, however, can immediately see your hand in every movement of material nature. The curtain of Yogamaya cannot cover the eyes of the devotee of your lordship, but it can cover the eyes of the non-devotee. The non-devotee is unable to see you face to face, just as a person whose eyes are blocked by the covering of a cloud cannot see the sun, although persons flying above the cloud can see the sunshine brilliantly as it is. My dear Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. My dear self-effulgent Lord, I am your eternal servitor. Therefore, kindly order me. What can I do for you? The conditioned soul feels the pangs of material contamination as the threefold miseries, as long as you are not visible to him. And as soon as you are visible by development of Krishna consciousness, all miseries of material existence are simultaneously vanquished. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is naturally very much affectionately inclined to his devotees. When he heard Śrutadeva's prayers of pure devotion, he was very much pleased and immediately caught his hands and addressed him as thus: "My dear Śrutadeva, all these great sages, brahmanas, and saintly persons have been very kind to you by personally coming here to see you. You should consider this opportunity to be a great fortune for you. They are so kind that they are traveling with me, and wherever they go, they immediately make the whole atmosphere as pure as transcendence, simply by the touch of the dust of their feet. People are accustomed to go to the temples of God. They also visit holy places of pilgrimage, and after prolonged association with such activities for many days, by touch and by worship, they gradually become purified. But the influence of great sages and saintly persons is so great that by seeing them, one immediately becomes completely purified. Moreover, the very purifying potency of pilgrimages or worship of different demigods is also achieved by the grace of saintly persons. A pilgrimage site becomes a holy place because of the presence of the saintly persons. My dear Śrutadeva, when a person is born as a brahmana, he immediately becomes the best of all human beings. And if such a brahmana, remaining self-satisfied, practices austerities, studies the Vedas, and engages in my devotional service, as is the duty of the brahmana, or in other words, if a brahmana becomes a Vaishnava, how wonderful is his greatness. My feature, the four-handed Narayana, is not so pleasing or dear to me as is a Brahmana Vaishnava. Brahmana means one well conversant with Vedic knowledge. A Brahmana is the insignia of perfect knowledge, and I am the full-fledged manifestation of all gods. Less intelligent men do not understand me, nor do they understand the influence of the Brahmana Vaishnava. They are influenced by the three modes of material nature, and thus dare to criticize me and my pure devotees. A Brahmana Vaishnava, or a devotee already on the Brahminical platform, can realize me within his heart, and therefore he definitely concludes that the whole cosmic manifestation and its different features are effects of different energies of the Lord. Thus he has a clear conception of the whole material nature and the total material energy. And in every action, such a devotee sees me only and nothing else. My dear Śrutadeva, you may therefore accept all these great saintly persons, brahmanas, and sages as my bona fide representatives. By worshipping them faithfully, you will be worshipping me more diligently. I consider worship of my devotees to be better than direct worship of me. If someone attempts to worship me directly without worshipping my devotees, I do not accept such worship, even though it may be presented with great opulence. In this way, both the Brahmana and Śrutadeva and the king of Mithila, under the direction of the Lord, worshipped Lord Krishna and his followers, the great sages and saintly brahmanas, on an equal level of spiritual importance. Both brahmana and king ultimately achieved the supreme goal of being transferred to the spiritual world. The devotee does not know anyone except Lord Krishna, and Krishna is most affectionate to his devotees. Lord Krishna remained in Mithila, both at the house of the Brahmana Śrutadeva and at the palace of King Bahulāśva. And after favoring them lavishly by his transcendental instructions, he went back to his capital city, Dwarka. The instruction we receive from this incident is that King Bahulāśva and Śrutadeva, the Brahmana, were accepted by the Lord on the same level, because both were pure devotees. This is the real qualification for being recognized by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because it has become the fashion of this age to be falsely proud of having given birth in a because it has become the fashion of this age to be falsely proud of having taken birth in the family of a Kshatriya or a Brahmana, we see persons without qualifications other than birth claiming to be a Brahmana or Kshatriya or Vaishya. But as stated in the scriptures, Kalau Shudra Sambhava. In this age of Kali, everyone is born a Shudra. This is because there is no performance of the purificatory processes known as sanskaras, which begin from the time of the mother's pregnancy and continue up to the point of the individual's death. No one can be classified as a member of a particular caste, especially of a higher caste, Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishnava, simply by birthright. If one is not purified by the process of the seed-giving ceremony or Garbhadhana Sanskara, he is immediately classified among the Shudras, because only the Shudras do not undergo this purificatory process. Sex life, without the purificatory process of Krishna consciousness, is merely the seed-giving process of the Shudras, or the animals. Krishna consciousness is therefore the best process of purification. By this process, everyone can come to the platform of a Vaishnava, which includes having all the qualifications of a Brahmana. The Vaishnavas are trained to become freed from the 4 kinds of sinful activities: illicit sex, indulgence in intoxicants, gambling, and eating animal foods. One cannot be on the Brahminical platform without having these preliminary qualifications. And without becoming a qualified Brahmana, one cannot become a pure devotee. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 86th chapter of Krishna, the kidnapping of Subadra, and Lord Krishna's visiting Śrutadeva and Bahulāśva. All glories to Lord Krishna. All glories to the great sages that always surround Krishna. And all glories to the pure devotees of the Lord who worship the sages in Krishna. And all glories to Krishna, who becomes happier by seeing these sages worship than by being worshipped himself. Hare Krishna. All right, it's 8:06, and we'll take some reflections, please, from the assembled sages and pure devotees.
First comment is from Shantarupa.
Shantarupa, Hare Krishna.
She says, "Happy days always. Thank you." From Rati Manjari.
Don't tell me. Jai Śrīla Gurudev.
Jai Guru Maharaj.
Jai Guru Maharaj.
Please
Haribol, Rati.
Please take us home.
Well, I think you're all taking me home. But anyway, that's the way I think. So, Hare Krishna.
And from Saloni Sachi Sundari.
Saloni Suchi Sundari. Haribol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupāda. All glories to the sublime souls listening to the nectar of Krishna's pastimes.
Yes, they are worshipable, no doubt.
From Deva Dharana.
Haribol Deva Dharana.
Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, dear Vaishnava.
Hare Krishna. All good fortune to you.
From Bhakti Noel.
Hare Krishna Bhakti Noel.
Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Jai.
I am very happy to be here today to cleanse some of the material grime off of my conditioned soul. My spirit soul craves this sublime nectar. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, for pouring this nectar into our ears. Hare Krishna.
From Bhaktamatsu.
Haribo Bhaktamatsu.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to Prabhupada.
From Sudevi Dasi. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Sudevi Dasi.
Oh, there's something more from Matsu here. Maharaj, what rectification is there for someone who commits an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, if any? Is there any way to free oneself from Vaishnava aparad?
Yes, this was explained by Lord Vishnu himself to Durvasa Muni, when Durvasa Muni committed a great offense against Maharaj Ambarish and wanted to kill him by creating some mystic, demoniac force, demon. And because Maharaj Ambarish was a humble devotee, even though he was a king, he was a humble devotee. He felt very bad because he was waiting for Durvasa Muni to come with his followers to take prasadam. And in the meantime, he was Dwadasi and he was scheduled to end his fast. And he consulted the Brahmanas, and the Brahmanas asked him to drink a little water, because water is not considered food. Anyway, after Maharaj Ambarish tried to create this demon to kill him, because he was so dear to Lord Krishna, the Sudarshan Chakra appeared and chased the demon. Burned the demon to ashes, and then started to chase Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni was not an ordinary person. He was a great yogi. He could travel anywhere in the universe and even into the Vaikuntha sky by his yogic power. And so he went to one demigod after another. Indra, Brahma, Shiva, trying to get relief from this offense and the danger of the Sudarshan Chakra. And finally, his last recourse was Lord Vishnu himself. And he went there. And he begged the Lord for forgiveness and for protection from the Sudarshan Chakra. So Krishna said, actually I'm helpless. I can't help you because you have offended a great Vaishnava, a great devotee of mine. And even if I were to forgive you, the Sudarshan Chakra would not forgive you. So what you must do is to go to Maharaj Ambarish and fall at his feet and beg forgiveness. And then you can get relief from this offense. There was another person in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. I don't remember his name exactly. It wasn't Gopala-Chapala, it was Gopal Chakravarti. I can't remember his name. Anyway, he was so envious of Srivas Pandit that he put some unclean articles on the porch of the front door of his house during the night. And when Srivas came out and saw them, he called all the village brahmanas around him. He said, so now you can see what kind of person I am. I'm just actually a Shakti, a worshipper of Shakti. So you can deal with me as you like. And they became so upset. And that same brahmana, the next day or two, he developed leprosy. And it was in complete pain and agony. And finally he saw Lord Chaitanya, passing by. He had gone to a place away from people because leprosy is very contagious. And he begged Lord Chaitanya to forgive him. And Lord Chaitanya said, there's nothing that can help you. Only the mercy of Srivas Pandit can help you. So that is why offenses to Vaishnavas are very serious. And they should be dealt with in a serious manner. And Bhaktivedanta Thakur says that if you approach a Vaishnava for forgiveness and they refuse to forgive you, then you must continue to serve them until they do. Hare Krishna.
From Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Shri Krishna Katha.
Haribol Gopakanya Devi Dasi, and glories to you who are a hearer of Krishna Katha.
Something from Bhakta Rupa. Thanks for
Haribol Bhakta Rupa. Just by saying all these devotees' names, I've been becoming purified. Hare Krishna.
Thanks for reading this evening, Maharaj. We're very grateful. Loved the Brahmana's amazing prayers about the Lord existing as the supersoul within the heart, as the constant companion. It seems the Brahmana is speaking from realization, considering how he accepted whatever came his way without endeavoring for it.
Yes.
The Lord supplied all necessities.
Yes.
The devotee sees the Lord's hand in every circumstance.
Absolutely.
Jai Prabhupada.
Not just in every circumstance. When he sees the world, he sees the Lord's hand in everything. Yes.
From Gopal Champu.
Hey Gopal Champu, Haribo.
He says, all glories to His Holiness Keshava Bharati Maharaj.
Oh, Gopal Champu, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Anandamurti Devi Dasi. Dear Guru Maharaj and all assembled devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Haribo.
Thank you so much for your reading of daily Srila Prabhupada's books. I understand the importance of all Vaishnavas.
Thank you, Anandamurti. Thank you.
From Rati Manjari.
Haribo Rati.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you for another reading. You are saving me day after day, attacking my causeless unwillingness to love Krishna with transcendental nectar bombs.
Rati, you go out and do Sankirtan and give it to the conditioned souls so much. I hardly think that it's me who's saving you. I think your devotional service is saving you. And Lord Chaitanya himself and Prabhupada are saving you. Hare Krishna.
Daityari Haridas.
Haribo Daitya Hari Haridas.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Jai,
all glories to
Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada. I was away on traveling Sankirtan last week in a tent, so I had no electricity. I really missed these readings, even though I was in good company. I was catching up over the last few days and really happy to be listening again live.
Nice. Thank you. Our desire is that everyone will do this every night in the whole world, and the whole atmosphere in the world will change if that were to happen. Hare Krishna. But at least the atmosphere can change wherever we are, for sure.
And more from Rati Manjari.
Haribo.
Tonight we heard the amazing story of how Arjuna dressed up as a so-called sannyasi because he was attracted to Subhadrā and wanted to marry her. Some time ago, while browsing online for some information about the great women of Mahabharata, wandered briefly into a type of Indian feminist interpretation of the kidnapping of Subhadra, portraying this pastime as a great mistreatment and abuse of Subhadra. When I got the gist of it, I immediately clicked away.
Good for you. It's very dangerous now. There's so many people who have so many ideas about so many things. It's very dangerous to associate. We should just associate with devotees. And don't, I recommend that one doesn't surf the internet. I don't surf the internet. Because when you go out there, you'll hear so many things, and it will be damaging to the faith.
Tonight we have heard the pastime from the mouth of Srila Prabhupāda in a very different manner.
Oh yes.
I would like to ask, for the sake of preaching, how should we respond to persons who have a negative view towards this ancient Kshatriya custom of kidnapping ladies?
Well, it's a different culture. We have a negative view of it because we are immersed in a materialistic culture. And all we think about is our bodies and what we are as men or women, or and our desire to become well known and popular and enjoy as much sense gratification as possible. And anyone who stands in the way of it, is our enemy. But the Vedic culture is not like that. Even though you will see conflicts, seemingly conflicts, or competition in these kinds of things, it is all in a different spirit. Just like, when Bhima and what's his name, King Jarasandha, were fighting to the death, literally. They would spend the evenings together as friends. So there's different principles that are going on in these affairs in the Vedic culture, and ultimately, all of them are interested in pleasing the Lord. And the Kshatriyas have different. I mean, it's a fact that anybody's in the material world is subject to the modes of material nature, the influence of the modes of nature. But if one follows the duties that he has properly, then he becomes gradually purified and elevated. Just like if a warrior runs from the battlefield, he's condemned, as Krishna said in the Gita. But the warrior who takes his duty seriously, defending the people, defending the humans from demoniac forces and negative and thieves and rogues and criminals, then they become elevated by doing that, even though the activity is different. So I don't know if it's possible in general to preach to people of the Kali Yuga about those cultural differences, because they need such a foundation. So I would say the best thing to do is cook them nice prasadam and fill them to the brim with prasadam. And if it's actually prasadam, if it's cooked with love for Krishna and offered with love for Krishna and served to the person you're serving with love, just like we heard how these great devotees, great souls, Śrutadeva and Bahulāśva, were serving Lord Krishna and all the sages, even menially. Even the Śrutadeva, he had nothing practically, wooden planks and things like that to give them to sit on and to eat on. But Krishna was just as pleased. So we shouldn't be distracted from those who have erroneous opinions about Krishna's pastimes and the personalities in these pastimes, and we should rest our minds and hearts in the pastimes themselves and relish them and stay purified. Therefore, the second class devotee, the preacher, he sees Krishna and worships and loves Krishna. He sees the devotees and he becomes friends with the devotees. He sees the innocent people and he explains the philosophy to innocent people. And those who are atheists, he avoids them. So I would say in this case, it is better to avoid people who are of that mentality, because they will drag you down to their position. Because it's a deep education that's required, spiritual education, for someone to understand those different, especially nowadays, when everyone's trying to protect their gender or their race or their nationality or their whatever, their religion, and fighting everyone else as if everyone else is an enemy. It's all fruitless, waste of time. I mean, when we go out in Sankirtan and give out books, we have to meet with all kinds of people, even those kinds of people. We should just treat them respectfully and cordially and thank them and move on. Hare Krishna.
Next is something from Vrajaloka.
Hare Krishna, Vrajaloka.
Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupāda. All glories to you. It was so nice to hear you again today. We just arrived home from a long Padayatra tour.
Wow.
This was a wonderful reading today. I liked that statement that Krishna's grace is that he is giving his transcendental counsel. At the end of the chapter, we heard that to get Krishna's attention, we have to be a pure devotee. Can you please elaborate on what exactly this means in our life, as we read several definitions of what a pure devotee is?
A pure devotee is one who is always thinking of Krishna and always doing what he's doing for the pleasure of Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Could you perhaps also say a few words about what it means that no one can become a pure devotee unless he first becomes a qualified brahmana?
Means they have to be initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, and they have to follow the instructions and the regulated principles that are given by the spiritual master strictly. And therefore, by becoming a Vaishnava, you automatically become a brahmana. Because those qualities of a brahmana come into the behavior of a Vaishnava. So it works both ways. You can't become a Vaishnava unless you're Brahmana, and you can't become a Brahmana unless you're a Vaishnava. Actually, you can become a Brahmana without being a Vaishnava, but you can't be a Vaishnava without being a Brahmana. But that doesn't mean you have to be born in a Brahmana family and overemphasize the rules and regulations to the exclusion of love for Krishna. The rule and the regulation of rabbinical life is not the master. The rule is not the master. The rule is the servant of pure devotion. We follow the rule in order to purify ourselves so that we can awaken our pure devotion. So a Brahmana who is very strict in all the rules and regulations, but is following them just for the sake of following them, without the goal of awakening their love for Krishna, is something else. Not a real Brahmana. And it's a cause of fall down from devotional life. Hare Krishna.
Daitari Hari Das.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry if it's a technical question, only partially related to tonight. But on the point of Krishna expanding himself into different forms, I heard someone say recently that all forms of the Lord, aside from Krishna and Vrindavan, are expansions of Balaram. That this is even the case for Dwarka Krishna. I was surprised to hear this and wanted to know if it's true or not.
Not true. The forms of Vishnu are expansions of Balaram. But the forms of Sankarshan in Mathura and Vyāsadeva and Balarama in Dwarka are expansions of Krishna and expansions of Balaram. The original forms of Krishna and Balaram are in Braja, and the forms of Vasudeva Krishna are the same person. They're the same person. This is what we have to understand. They're not a different person, but they have a capacity to be another form and not show all of the original form, all of the original opulences and attributes of the original form. It's a science. You should sit down to the Chaitanya Charitamrita and learn about what all the expansions are, and then you will see clearly. And therefore, when you say, someone told me, check your references, when you hear something like that and it's a little different than what you've heard from Prabhupada's books, go to Prabhupada's books, research them. That's why Prabhupada gave us these books. He gave us these books to research, to read, hear, and also to study and learn, and so that the eyes and ears can hear and see properly through transcendental knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Gopal Champu.
Haribol Gopal Champu.
Getting ready to go out the door for book distribution.
Oh, Haribol.
Thank you, Maharaj, for reminding us of the nectar in these books.
Hare Krishna, thank you for being there to relish the nectar in these books. One more?
There's quite a few more.
Because I've been getting messages during the reading, and it's 8:30, and I have to answer some very important messages. So I'm going to have to close it down for tonight. Please don't mind. Hare Krishna. And thank you all for your wonderful reflections and questions and your inquisitiveness and your desire to discuss more the pastimes of Krishna. It is my life and soul too. But tonight I have, I have messages that I have to answer right away, important messages. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. So we'll be with you tomorrow night. Then the next night is my birthday, and I won't be doing the reading that next night. It's courtesy. I'm chanting 64 rounds, then I have to sit and hear all these crazy things about me, and so I won't be reading on Wednesday night, but I'll see you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same topic, the unfolding of Krishna's glories and the philosophy that helps us to understand them. And tomorrow night we start the 87th chapter, prayers by the personified Vedas, the longest chapter in the book. It'll take a few nights to read through it, and bring your thinking caps with you for tomorrow. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow night. All glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Prabhupada's books, which are non-different than Prabhupada, and all glories to those devotees who relish hearing them every night. Haribol.